What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow based off of the charts are showing and based off of the data is suggesting. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the overall market and how this may affect Tesla, some big updates involving Giga Shanghai and Giga Fremont, and also what Tesla put on their Twitter page, which is good news for Tesla investors. Now, before I break anything down about Tesla, before I talk about what's going on with the markets and how this may affect us going forward, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. Not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is any of these 12 free stocks could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 1 week. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at Tesla, this thing was up about 0.15% for the day. We actually had a big drop into open around that 210 range. Got a nice bounce off that. We pushed up to about 221, which was actually previous support, which became resistance. Then after that, we came down and we ended up trying to hold 215 throughout the entire day. We ended up actually holding it, but barely closing green up 0.15%. And Tesla was looking kind of shaky throughout the day. Now, in my previous video, I predicted that Tesla would get a slight push into open, followed by a big rejection. I predicted Tesla would break below 215 and close maybe below or very close to like 211. So I was talking about this support zone being very critical. It turns out we actually held 215 throughout the day, but I wasn't necessarily wrong for thinking about us like coming down. Because when you look at SPY, this thing came down pretty hard. You guys can see the move that ended up playing out. We saw this thing gap down pretty hard, touch 36A, which is previous support, got a bounce off that. But after that, we were showing some weakness, especially into close, and this thing was not that strong. We were still kind of red on that. However, what was underperforming was the QQQ and the NASDAQ. If I go down to them, let me find the charts. You will notice that they weren't performing as well as they were in the past. The NASDAQ was down, or the QQQ was also down like almost 2%. We had this gap right here. We kind of went for the fill. We ended up getting rejected and we ended up coming down. So we're barely holding 260. And what is kind of concerning about this is on the QQQ, if we end up breaking below it, we have potential to come down to the 254 to 250 zone. So not really a good sign on the QQQ, and more downside does seem more imminent in this market, which will negatively affect Tesla to some degree. However, Tesla is showing some strength relative to the markets, so it's not going to be as bad, at least as of right now. When it comes to the markets, the fear and greed index was greedy yesterday. Now it's pretty neutral, which is a sign we're becoming more fearful as time goes on, especially after those big announcements being made by Jerome Powell himself. He's talked about the fact that the Fed may be becoming more aggressive than anticipated for the future. He also mentioned the fact that the Fed may be getting ready for a pivot, but we don't truly know exactly when. And he also mentioned the fact that inflation is still high and they have to make very, very forceful yet thoughtful moves in the process. So the market did not like this hawkish tone that Powell had, and as a result, we are seeing some pain because of it. Looking at Tesla, we can see that the overall market does affect its price action. If you compare it to SPY, it's very obvious that this does have an effect on us. Very recently, the SPY was outperforming Tesla, and Tesla is still kind of like lagging behind a bit. But if you compare it to like the QQQ, for instance, very similar comparison right here could be made because Tesla does tend to be more correlated with more like tech stocks and the NASDAQ. When it comes to the price pairs ratio, there's a nice balance right here at the very bottom, which is a sign we are showing more strength than the market, but it's starting to kind of trend and curl a little bit. So right now it's kind of flat right now, which shows that Tesla's not doing like too great, but not too bad either. However, if the market does continue selling to the downside, this will have an effect on us quite clearly. Now, many analysts like Morgan Stanley are still very bullish for Tesla's long term. I still agree with them. I'm still very bullish, of course, but from a seasonality basis, Fridays tend to be actually red days for Tesla. We're actually green only 48% of the time. And on a monthly forecast, in November, Tesla tends to be green about 66% of the time. So November is historically a good month for Tesla, but given current market circumstances, this could change depending on CPI and things like that. And so far, we're not like really off to the best of starts because of what Powell ended up mentioning. Coming down to the short interest right here, this was actually downtrending, which is part of why Tesla was holding up pretty well. However, right here we are starting to see it come up just a little bit, which means some shorts are starting to come back into the stock and they may try to drag this thing down. The overall volume was kind of low for the day, only 56 million. It's average, on average, it's like 79 million, so it's a little bit low overall. And as far as the short volume percentage goes, right here, I often look at this as a key indicator of who's in control. Right now, it's only about 43%, which is a sign that the bulls still have control over the stock. But this could actually change as time goes on and actually start trending to the upside. There's an uptrend right here, which means there could be more potential downside. Now, when it comes to Tesla, I want to talk about something else that's interesting before I talk about like my prediction and things like that. It was actually reported that Tesla delivered 71,000 Model 3s and Model Ys for the month of October, which is a 14% drop from September. And in September, they had about 83,000, which is an all time high for them. And this is leading to a lot of people just talking about how, markets are criticizing it. I don't really consider this that bad because there were many external factors affecting them. But the good thing is they are upgrading the Shanghai Gigafactory to be able to boost production to about 750,000 vehicles per year, which is fantastic. Now, when it comes to the charts right now, many articles reported that it was because of the virus, the lockdown situations over there, and many price cuts that are not necessarily helping Tesla in China. They are causing them to actually ship a little bit less than what they did from the past. But overall, if you look at the amount of shipments, it is still not that bad compared to the past. I think this is like the third highest of all time still, or like fourth highest. Still not that bad, but at the same time, it's not like great. So this is really happening because of factors that are out of their control. And my only concern is I really hope this does not kind of like impact production for the longer term. I still believe Tesla could meet their goals, but like Elon Musk and many other investors mentioned, Q4 may not be as great as some people want it to be because of the fact that demand is coming down and deliveries and production may have a big difference in them. So, as a result of the fact that, look, in Shanghai, these things are going on, in China, there are all these hardships, Tesla is deciding to kind of push more and more of these engineers from China to come to the USA and help improve production in Fremont. We can see right here they're trying to replicate the massive success that they achieved in the Giga Shanghai to bring more engineers from China here to improve production, their means of production, their abilities to produce cars much more efficiently. And this will really help them for the long term, in my honest opinion, to ramp up production. So it's a good move by Tesla right now to help actually meet those goals. And I really believe this will improve their outlook, their output, and things like that for the future going forward. Now, one funny thing that actually came out on Tesla's Twitter page was the Model Xmas sweater is now available. If you guys are interested in buying this, you could go look it up on the internet or go on Tesla's Twitter page to buy it. It looks pretty cool. And if you are interested, it's really up to you. But it is a very, very good thing about Tesla because they have a brand that's very popular. And having the big brand is what really gives them recognition and credibility for more investors and more consumers. So, as far as the technicals go, it's important to note that the long term future is still very bright for Tesla. But from a fundamental standpoint, guys, there may be some hardships coming because we were in the first phase of this potential recession and we may be entering the second phase, which would be an earnings recession. This is because of the fact that demand is coming down, and as Jerome Powell mentioned, there is going to be a lot of pain in many sectors, especially real estate. And he mentioned something else, and that is the fact that the pain is going to be very slow. It's not an immediate effect, but as the Fed continues to be more hawkish, slowly as time goes on, demand is going to be affected. Now, I mentioned to you guys the fact that, look, the SPY, the NASDAQ, the QQQ do look more bearish than bullish right now, because when you look at the overall trend, it's quite clear that we have this kind of a U-like shape that's forming. And my target on the SPY would be this kind of like gap fill area around this like 358 zone. I do think the SPY could come down all the way there, if not like 360. And it's not looking the best right now for the short term. Now, for the very, very short term for tomorrow, I think there's going to be a little bit of upside. I think we could go for the gap fill if there's enough like volume, enough buyers stepping in. So the gap would take us to about that 374 to 375 range. But then once we actually fill this gap, in my opinion, I'm anticipating a big rejection followed by a big drop. And I do think the SPY is going to retest this like 368 to 366 zone for tomorrow. So, like I mentioned earlier, I'm anticipating a slight push in the markets into open. I could see SPY actually hit this like 374.75 to 375 zone. Then we could see a big sell off after that. And I'm anticipating a big sell off near the end of the day tomorrow, which is probably going to cause the markets to drop almost collectively and will have an effect on Tesla. I do believe this is going to be correlated with the NASDAQ and the QQQ, and that's part of the reason why I think it's going to affect Tesla. So, what's interesting about Tesla is so far we're holding up pretty well. However, we did not get a big push like some people were kind of like wishing for. Instead, we barely held 215 support. We're barely in the green. We actually are below it right now in the after hours. So, looking at the market, you will notice that Tesla was pushing up in the past, right? We got a nice push up. We were holding this zone right here. There's lots of chop right around this zone. And then after that, we've been respecting a downtrend from here. Tesla's starting to make those like lower lows and lower highs. So I am anticipating this trend is going to continue, especially as the market is looking more bearish. And I do think Tesla is going to retest lower levels as time goes on. Now, remember, guys, we actually touched 210 today, at least at one point, and it's looking like we're going to see another retest of that in the future. So right now, Tesla's key resistance is around 221 and then 226. And if we do come down, we have support at 215, which is actually not holding so far. And then we also have 211 followed by 205, 202, and then 200 flat. Now, what I'm anticipating for tomorrow is a move like this. I wouldn't be surprised if we get kind of like a repeat of today. We kind of push up like this, we push up slowly. I don't know if we're going to go all the way up to like 221, but we could try to go for like 217 to 218. We might get a slight rejection off that, and I think the market's going to slowly bleed. And I do think since it's a Friday, lots of sellers do tend to step in, and historically, Tesla tends to be red 52% of the time on Fridays, at least for this entire year. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla retests 215, end up breaking below it. We end up coming all the way down to about 211, just like this, and we might try to hold this zone for the time being. Now, the reason why I don't think Tesla's going to drop much lower than that, though, is because so far we are showing more strength relative to the markets. So I'm hoping this thing holds this 211 zone. But if we don't, if this thing is like super bearish, guys, it is possible for this thing to come well below it and come all the way down to about that 205 zone. So watch that very, very carefully. But I'm anticipating that we're going to hold this like 211 to 29 zone because we also had support there in the past. It's just not as strong. Let me just make this clear. 209 to like 211. This zone right here is where I think Tesla's going to hold for tomorrow. I do think we could come down maybe a little lower, like retest this zone a little bit here and there. But overall, I'm hoping that we do hold it for the time being, and it would put us in a pretty interesting spot for next week. Now, because the market is still very uncertain about what the Fed is going to do, and there's a lot of fear that's really kicking in, the fear and greed index is slowly getting closer to the fearful side. I am anticipating more downside for the markets, and I do think this will have an effect on Tesla. So, anyways, guys, this is just a short-term projection. Remember, for the long term, we're still very, very bullish. I'm still very excited about the big revelations that are going to be coming. I'm very excited about the Cybertruck that's coming out very soon, the Roadster, and many, many big innovations to come for this company. I'm still very bullish, but for the short term, guys, there is likely going to be some pain. So please be ready, especially as we enter a potential earnings recession over the next couple of months. With that said, thank you for listening. Have a great rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon because the long term future is bright, and peace out.